Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. It wasn't the cheating that broke me, it was how casual she was about it. The whole thing unraveled on a night that felt too quiet. No thunder, no drama, just that still kind of silence that makes your skin itch. She was sitting on the arm of the couch, not in it like someone waiting to leave, legs crossed, wine in hand, phone upside down, and that distant look in her eyes like she was already packed in her mind. I didn't ask anything. I just stood there holding the letter she left half hidden in the drawer. A handwritten note with the words, "I'm not unhappy, just bored." I read it twice, then looked at her. She didn't flinch, didn't even try to take it back. Instead, she said something that didn't even sound real until it echoed through the room. "You're not who I want." Like I was a jacket she thought she liked but never wore. I didn't yell, didn't ask why. I just slid the ring off my finger and let it fall to the hardwood. The sound it made wasn't loud, but somehow it cut deeper than any scream. Then I pointed to the door. "That's the exit. You should take it before this gets ugly." She blinked once, like it took her a second to register that I wasn't going to beg, that I didn't ask for more time. I didn't ask who she wanted. Maybe that's what messed with her the most. But before she could say anything else, there was a knock, not hers. She was still standing there, half shocked, half smirking. It was soft, 3 little taps. She turned to look. I didn't. I just walked past her and opened the door. And there she was, her sister, Harper, still in scrubs, hair tied back, eyes wide with something between regret and hope. Then she looked at me, not past me, not around me, at me. And she asked, "Kurt, can I come in?" And my wife, well, soon to be ex, didn't say a word because Harper was holding something in her hand, a folded up photo. And she said, "There's something you need to see now." Harper didn't wait for me to say yes. She stepped inside like the door was meant for her all along. My wife, Kendra, stood frozen, still gripping her wine glass like it was the last ounce of control she had. Her jaw tightened when Harper brushed past her. No hug, no hello, just a shared silence packed with more tension than any argument we'd ever had. Harper held out the folded photo, but her eyes stayed locked on mine. "You should sit down first," she whispered. I didn't. I took the photo and opened it. It was grainy, probably printed from a security cam, but even in black and white, even with the timestamp partially cut off, I recognized the scene. It was the back hallway of Kendra's yoga studio, and in the center of the frame, clear as day, was Kendra, leaning against the wall, lips locked with someone who was definitely not me. It was her coworker, the same guy she told me was like a brother. I stood there staring at proof, and all I could hear was my own breathing. Shallow, jagged, not angry, just hollow. I turned toward her, and before I could ask anything, Harper stepped between us and said, "This isn't the only one." "There's a folder," Kendra finally snapped. "What the hell are you doing, Harper? You told me you wanted out. You didn't say you were going to crush him like a roach." Harper fired back. "He deserved the truth. You were never going to give it to him." That's when I realized this wasn't spontaneous. Harper didn't just find these photos. She'd been collecting them, waiting for me, for justice, or for something else. Kendra scoffed. "Don't act noble. You're just mad he chose me first." And that sentence, God, that sentence cut through everything. Harper went quiet. Her shoulders dropped just slightly enough for me to see it. The hurt, the history, the way she avoided my eyes then, not out of guilt, but because Kendra had said something real. Something neither of them wanted me to know. I didn't ask. I couldn't. My legs carried me to the couch before my mind caught up. I sat there with the photo still in my hand and my ring still somewhere under the fridge. It felt like a ghost wrapped around my finger. Harper finally broke the silence. "There's more, but only if you want to see it." Kendra turned and walked to the door, muttering something about starting fresh in freedom, like she was the victim in her own mess. But before she left, she looked back one last time and said, "You'll regret not fighting for me." I didn't reply. I just looked at Harper. And then I nodded because whatever came next whatever folder, whatever truths, I needed to see them. Even if they shattered the last good memory I had of my wife, and Harper, she didn't blink. She just said, "Okay, but you'll need a drink first." What she showed me next, it wasn't about Kendra. It was about me and something I never saw coming. I followed Harper into the kitchen, where she placed her phone face down on the counter, like it had burned her fingers. She opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of ginger ale, and poured it into a glass without asking. I sat there across from her, still holding the printout of Kendra wrapped around that yoga guy, like she didn't have a husband waiting at home making her dinner every night. "You need to see something else," Harper said, her voice lower now, like someone might be listening. She reached into her bag and pulled out a second envelope, thick and warped, like it had been hidden under a floorboard. She pushed it across the table with one finger, not meeting my eyes. I opened it slowly. My hands were sweating. Inside were screenshots, dozens of printed chats, blurry but legible. All of them were between Kendra and Harper. "He's not a bad guy," Harper had typed. "Just not what I pictured for you." "I know," Kendra replied, "but stable is useful. And once the house is refinanced and the joint account clears, I'm done playing step forward." I nearly threw up. Harper looked up. "She told me she was going to leave you after the money hit. That's why I started saving the messages. At first, I thought she was venting, but then I realized she meant it. You weren't her husband. You were her backup plan until something better came along. I don't know how long I sat there. Time didn't feel real. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. My throat had closed up like it was trying to protect me from whatever I might say next. Harper reached across and touched my hand gently. "You deserve to know." That's when the door slammed. I turned and Kendra was back. Her lipstick was smeared, eyes wild, phone in her hand. "You little rat!" She snapped at Harper. "You broke into my backup files. That's a felony, you idiot!" Harper stood up slowly, calm, collected, and blackmailing your own husband out of his own retirement. Savings is what? Marriage counseling. Kendra laughed bitterly. "Don't act innocent. You're just jealous he picked me. You wanted him first, remember?" My stomach twisted. "What night?" I asked. Neither answered. Harper's jaw locked, and Kendra folded her arms with that victorious little shrug. "Don't pretend you didn't feel it," Kendra said. "She flirted with you every chance she got. I just made the first move." I looked at Harper, who didn't deny it. She just looked tired, broken in a different way. I stood there torn between rage and confusion. Was I just some consolation prize between two sisters playing a long game? Kendra stepped forward like she was walking into a courtroom. She thought she could win. "You can kick me out. You can tear up the account, but you'll always wonder who wanted you more." And that's when I said it. "Then go. Both of you." Her face dropped. Harper froze. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just walked over to the table, took the envelope, and dropped it in the trash. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I didn't want their war infecting my peace any longer. "I'll send the papers," I said, and Kendra, she stormed out. But Harper didn't move. She just whispered, "That's not how I wanted this to go." I looked at her. "Then why did you come?" She hesitated, then said, "Because I thought I could finally fix what I helped break." Whatever she meant, I wasn't ready to hear it. But later that night, when I opened my email, there was a message waiting for me from Harper with one line. "If you still want the truth, meet me tomorrow." The next morning, I stood in the parking lot of the old Lake House Cafe. Same place we used to go in college, back when Harper and I were just part of the same friend group before Kendra even knew I existed. I hadn't been back in years. Not since the night Harper swam out past the buoys, just to prove she wasn't afraid of the dark. Back then, everything felt like a dare. Now, it all felt like a setup. She was already inside when I walked in, sitting in the corner booth, tucked behind a chipped vase of fake daisies, wearing a sweatshirt 3 sizes too big, and no makeup. It was the first time in a long time she didn't look like someone's sister. She just looked tired and maybe scared. I slid into the booth across from her. Neither of us spoke at first. The waitress came by and I ordered black coffee just to keep my hands busy. "I didn't tell you everything," Harper said finally, because it wouldn't have helped. "It might still not, but you deserve the full picture." I nodded once. "Say it." She swallowed hard. "The night Kendra met you, she didn't meet you by accident." That sentence hit harder than I expected. My stomach tightened. Harper went on, her voice quieter. "She knew I had a crush on you. She saw the messages I drafted and never sent. She teased me for it, said I was being desperate for a safe guy. But then she showed up at the party that night, all dressed up like she wasn't even planning to go. And by the end of it, she had your number." I leaned back, breath caught in my throat. "She never loved you, Curtis," Harper said, eyes glassy. "She wanted to prove she could take anything, even someone I liked, and turn it into her victory." I hated how much that made sense. All the moments that didn't quite fit. The way Kendra always made sure I knew Harper had a boyfriend, even when she didn't. The way she rolled her eyes when Harper came over. The strange little victories she collected like they were owed to her. "And you never said anything?" I asked. "I tried," Harper whispered. "But you looked so happy." And then it was too late. She made sure of that. I wanted to be angry, but I just felt hollow. Like my entire marriage had been some long con, and I was the prize no one really wanted, just the proof someone else could win. "You came to me with the folder," I said. "But not just to expose her, right? You could have mailed it. You wanted something else." Harper looked away. "I wanted you to know the truth before you lost the last piece of yourself to her." "And then what?" I asked. "You swoop in and fix it. Get the guy in the end?" "No," she said quickly. "I came because I still remember who you were before her. Before she made you feel small. I don't want anything from you. But if one day you remember who you were too, before she broke you, I hope you'll call me." She slid a note across the table, her number in faded ink. Then she stood, pulled her hood over her head, and left. I sat there long after the coffee went cold, staring at the number, wondering how many years of my life had been decided without me knowing. And as I walked back to my car, I realized something else. I didn't just lose my marriage, I lost my own story somewhere in it. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to start writing a new one. At first, I figured it was Kendra, maybe coming back to gloat. Maybe to cry, or maybe to twist the knife one last time with a smug speech about how I'd never do better. I was prepared to keep the door shut. But when I peeked through the blinds, I froze. It wasn't her. It was him, the guy from the photo, the yoga studio co-worker, the one with the smug hands and smirking lips tangled around my wife in that grainy hallway printout. His name was Darren, and I only knew that because Kendra had said it once in passing. "Oh, Darren's covering the morning class," like he was a footnote in her day. I opened the door about halfway. "You're lost," I said flatly. He shook his head. "No, I'm exactly where I should be." "Boy!" I didn't say a word, just waited. He sighed, shoved his hands into his pockets like this was some awkward neighborly drop-in. "I know you probably want to knock me out, and that's fair. But I'm not here to fight. I'm here to tell you something." "I'm not interested," I said, starting to close the door. "But it's not about Kendra," he added quickly. "It's about Harper." That stopped me. I stepped out onto the porch and shut the door behind me. "You've got about 30 seconds, I said. "And if this is some twisted love triangle nonsense, you're getting off this porch with a limp." He chuckled bitterly. "Nothing like that. I'm not here for drama. I'm here because Harper wasn't being entirely honest with you." I clenched my fists. "Careful," he nodded. "Look, I work with Kendra, but I've known Harper longer. Before either of them started treating me like background noise. A few years ago, Harper, she was different. She was sharp, focused, but then she got obsessed." "Obsessed with what?" I asked. with undoing Kendra, he said. It started small, exposing lies, subtle things. But somewhere along the way, it wasn't just about protecting you. It was about beating her sister, taking back what she felt was stolen. I stared at him, trying to decide whether to believe a man who was still wearing cologne that probably came from Kendra's glove compartment. You're saying she used me? I asked. He hesitated. I'm saying she might not have started with clean intentions, but that doesn't mean her feelings now aren't real. That left me reeling. I'd already been used once. The idea that Harper, the one person who seemed like she had my back, might have had her own agenda from the beginning, it made my stomach churn. I'm telling you this because you deserve to know the full truth, he said. Not just Kendra's version or Harper's. Then he turned to leave, pausing, only to add, they're both good at rewriting history. Just make sure you're not living in someone else's story again. And then he was gone. I stood there on the porch as the sun started to dip below the tree line, and all I could think was, what if I've been a passenger in my own life this entire time? That night, I stared at Harper's number for hours, but I didn't call. Not yet. Because I needed to know who really started this fire, and who just stood there pretending to hand me water while holding the match behind their back. I stared at my phone long enough for the screen to go dark at least a dozen times. Harper's number was there in my call log, untouched since she gave it to me. And after what Darren said on my porch, I should have deleted it, should have closed the door, sealed the wound, and walked away from both sisters, and everything tied to them. But I didn't. Instead, around 10:37 p.m., I tapped her name and pressed call. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice was soft. Kurt. Yeah, I said. I didn't even plan what to say. Didn't rehearse it like I usually do when I feel too much. We need to talk. She was silent for a beat, then said, come over. So I did. Her apartment was small, dimly lit, and smelled like eucalyptus and laundry detergent. She'd changed out of the hoodie and now wore a plain gray tee. Hair pulled up, face unreadable. She didn't hug me. I didn't ask for one. She handed me a glass of water, and we both sat on her couch like strangers, pretending they weren't once orbiting the same sun. I need to ask you something, I said, and I want the truth, even if it hurts. Harper didn't blink. Okay. When you gave me those screenshots and told me everything about Kendra, were you doing it for me? Or just to finally win some sick competition you've been playing against her? She didn't look offended. She didn't get defensive. She just sighed like she'd been waiting for that question since the moment she stepped into my house. I started collecting those messages for myself, she admitted. At first, it was about seeing her get what she deserved. I hated watching her hurt people and walk away like she was untouchable. But when I saw how she looked at you, how she used you like a stepping stone, I started to realize something else. I wasn't just angry at her. I was scared for you. You were so deep in it. You didn't even see yourself anymore. I leaned forward. So, this was charity? No, she said, shaking her head. It turned into something else. And I don't expect you to believe me, but somewhere in all of that, I stopped thinking about what I lost to her and started thinking about what you deserve to get back. She looked at me, eyes glassy. You were never supposed to be part of our war. I believed her. Maybe not entirely, but enough to feel my chest loosen a little. The problem was Darren's words were still bouncing around my head, like bullets in a small room. And Darren, I asked, you ever tell him about this plan of yours? Her eyes narrowed. You talked to Darren? He came to my house, I said. Told me you've been playing a long game, that this was never just about Kendra. Harper exhaled through her nose. Of course he did. Darren's been obsessed with her for years. She used him like she used you, but he never got what he wanted. So now he's trying to drag everyone else down with him. I raised an eyebrow. What did he want? She hesitated just long enough to raise every red flag I had left. Harper, I said slowly. What did Darren want? She looked me dead in the eye. Me. and suddenly the whole board shifted again. Darren wasn't just a pawn in Kendra's game. He had his own. And I was the idiot sitting in the middle, believing whichever story sounded most tragic that day. I stood up. My mind was spinning. "I need air." She didn't stop me, just nodded and said, "If you walk away, I get it. But don't let his version of the truth bury mine." I walked out, and as I stepped into the cold night air, my phone buzzed. One new voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I played it without thinking, and my blood turned to ice. It was a recording, a muffled one, but I recognized the voices, Kendra and Darren, and what they were saying. It wasn't just about me. It was about Harper and a setup I had walked straight into. I replayed the voicemail 5 times before I sat down on the curb. I couldn't move, couldn't even feel the cold concrete under me. The voices were fuzzy, but I knew them. Kendra's sharp laugh and Darren's low, oily tone were burned into my memory by now. But it wasn't just hearing them that froze me. It was what they said. "You think he'll actually fall for it?" Kendra's voice crackled through the static. "He already has," Darren replied. "Harper plays the wounded saint in Curtis. He eats it up, always wanted someone to save. Let him believe she's it." Then laughter from both of them. Kendra continued. "So we wait. He divorces me, throws himself at Harper, and then—" Darren answered. "Then they both learn they're not as clever as they think." I don't remember how long I sat there. The audio ended, and my hands just stayed still. Phone still glowing in my palm like a lit fuse. My heart didn't beat faster. It just dropped like it was too heavy to lift again. I felt every ounce of humiliation settle on my shoulders like concrete. The woman I married was orchestrating my downfall. The man she cheated with was feeding me breadcrumbs. And the woman I thought was my only real ally? Maybe just another mask in the show. I went home in a fog, didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table staring at nothing. The box labeled wedding stuff was still next to the door. I opened it. Inside was our wedding photo, smiling in a frame that felt like it belonged to strangers. I took it out, turned it over, and saw Kendra's handwriting on the back. "Here's to forever, even if it gets ugly." It got ugly. All right. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to burn everything down. I was going to end it on my terms. For once, I drove to the yoga studio first. Kendra's car was there. I walked in and waited until she came out of class, all polished and glowing, like betrayal was just a facial treatment. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Curtis." I handed her an envelope. Inside were the divorce papers, signed, notarized, official. "I'm not your puppet anymore," I said calmly. "You wanted freedom. Here it is." She flipped through the papers, trying to act amused. "You think this makes you strong?" "No," I said, "but I finally don't feel weak." Before she could respond, I turned and walked out. Next stop was Harper's. I didn't call. I didn't warn her. I needed to see her face the second she heard the recording. I knocked. She answered in seconds, as if she'd been expecting me. "You okay?" she asked softly. "No," I replied, pulling out my phone. "But you will be honest with me right now." I played the voicemail. Her face shifted slowly. Shock, hurt, a strange kind of horror. "Where did you get that?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Anonymous voicemail," I said. "Maybe Darren. Maybe someone else. Doesn't matter. Just tell me if you knew." She swallowed hard. "Curtis, I didn't know they were still talking. I thought, did you ever talk to him about using me?" I interrupted. Her silence was the loudest thing I've ever heard. Then she finally said, "Only at the beginning, before I knew what he was." It was honest, but it was too late. "I'm done letting people rewrite me into their stories," I said, stepping back. "I don't want revenge. I don't want drama. I just want peace. And I won't find it here with you." Harper didn't cry. She just nodded like she knew this was coming. As I turned to leave, she called out softly, "I did care. I still do." But I didn't turn around because sometimes the worst betrayal isn't the one that cuts the deepest. It's the one that leaves you wondering if any of it was ever real. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry or heartbroken, or even confused anymore. I didn't sleep because for the first time in a long time, my mind was finally quiet. No more guessing who was lying. No more trying to be the husband, the fixer, the fool. I woke up at 6:03 a.m. without an alarm. Showered, packed the last of Kendra's things into the car, dropped the box labeled wedding stuff at her mother's porch, and didn't bother leaving a note. The photo frame was gone. I didn't burn it or smash it. I just quietly buried it at the bottom of a dumpster 2 nights ago. It felt symbolic at the time, like I was discarding someone else's movie script with my name printed on the front. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I took the long road out of town, past the lake where we used to go in the early days, past the cafe where Harper and I last spoke. I turned off my phone, not out of anger, not to make a point, just because the silence had finally become more comforting than anyone's voice. I thought about Harper, about whether I could ever fully trust her again. Maybe I could, maybe not. But I knew this much. She wasn't my responsibility. Not anymore. And that truth felt better than any apology ever could. I thought about Darren too, and his smug little game with Kendra. I don't know if they ever got what they wanted from this. Power, chaos, control, but I didn't need to expose them, or fight them, or even warn anyone else. That's not my war. That's not my weight to carry. I pulled over near the overlook just outside Ridgeview. No one was around. The air was cool, and the town stretched out below, like something I used to be a part of, but didn't belong to anymore. I stood there just breathing, just being. No ring on my finger, no lies pressing against my chest. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I smiled. Not because I won, not because they lost, but because I finally walked away without needing a final word. Peace didn't come from confrontation. It came from stepping off the stage completely and refusing to be part of their play. My story was no longer something being done to me. It was mine again. Messy, cracked, unfinished, but mine. Weeks later, Harper did text. Just one line. "If you ever want coffee, no expectations." I haven't replied. Maybe someday I will. Maybe I won't. But either way, I'll decide for me. Have you ever walked away from someone not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself? Share your moment in the comments below. Subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more real-life stories where truth hits harder than fiction. And if you made it to the end of this one, thank you. Sometimes survival is the plot twist.